I'd like to start off by thanking my brother, President Uhuru Kenyatta, for having taken the time to undertake this long journey to come to South Africa. We had long promised each other that we would visit each other's countries, and today he has honored me and the people of South Africa with his visit. We truly value this great visit from a great nation like Kenya and its leader and various other leaders who have come with him to South Africa. You humble us with your presence, and thank you very much for being here. We gather here today to celebrate what I'd see as the promise of the relationship between two great nations that spans over several decades. This is a promise of shared growth and shared prosperity as well. It is the promise of a united Africa, able to realize its great potential. This business forum is an opportunity not only to discuss trade and investment opportunities between Kenya and South Africa, but also to explore the vast and enormous economic potential of the African continental free trade area. The value that we can expect from the continental free trade area is to unlock, in the short term, the immense growth that lies ahead for us. It is estimated that by 2050, the population of our continent will be around 2.5 billion. This next generation, the next generation rather, will be more urbanized. It will consist of people who are more educated than us, and they will be more wealthier than we are, much more tech-savvy than we are. They'll be more mobile, and perhaps even a lot cleverer than we are. And they will be much better than any generation that has come before them. It is envisaged that the urban population of our continent will be larger than that of China and India, and 4 times larger than that of the United States. To realize the opportunity of this demographic dividend, we will need to rapidly expand and to diversify our industrial capacity. And it is important that as business people, we begin to envision this future that is coming towards us. In order to grasp and to embrace this future, we must become leading producers in the type of consumer products that this generation that is evolving is going to require. We must manufacture the complex industrial commodities needed for core industries like mining, construction, and agriculture. And this is best achieved through collaborative and complementary production approaches. The development of regional value chains that allow for specialization while also fairly sharing the benefits of growth will allow our economies to grow as our populations do. Now, with these regional value chains as a base, and as Africa becomes more interconnected, we will be able to competitively integrate into global value chains. Now, what will this do? It will open up a new era for African exports, meeting the challenge of population growth and rapid economic growth will require an infrastructure revolution. The African Development Bank estimates that Africa needs to spend between $130 billion and $170 billion a year to meet the infrastructure needs of our continent. That spending will connect the continent through new roads, rail, port infrastructure, while investment in information and communications technology will support the growth of a modern service and manufacturing economy. Infrastructure development will improve the business environment, but it will also unlock a number of growth opportunities for African manufacturers, for construction companies, and a number of service firms as well on our continent. Effectively mobilizing the scale of funding needed for such infrastructure requires risk-sharing partnerships among numerous private and public partners. At the same time, developers and implementers must be supported by comprehensive project preparation funding and support programs. As two leading economies in our respective regions, South Africa and Kenya have a key role to play in driving continental integration. Our existing regional value chains can be integrated by deepening bilateral economic relations and specifically by more direct collaboration in industrial and infrastructure projects that are of mutual interest. These efforts build on a long-standing trade and investment foundation. In the last 2 decades, over 40 South African companies have invested in the Kenyan market. Although these projects have an investment value of 6.84 billion rand and has created over 2,700 jobs in Kenya, South Africa ranks amongst the top 5 investors in the Kenyan market, but much more can be done. Kenya is South Africa's largest trading partner in Africa, outside the SADC region, and South Africa is the biggest exporter of goods to Kenya on the African continent. So the importance of our two countries to each other is quite enormous. The depth and the breadth of this trade and investment relationship makes Kenya a key partner for South Africa in East Africa. South Africa could be a strategic partner in implementing President Kenyatta's Big Four agenda, which has a specific focus on the sectors of manufacturing, food security, universal health care, and affordable housing. For this to happen, our trade relationship needs to involve greater value addition with more focus on manufactured and agricultural goods. We need to take deliberate steps to achieve greater balance in our bilateral trade, which is currently heavily skewed in favor of South Africa. Mr. President, your High Commissioner, when she presented her letters of credentials to me not so long ago, looked me straight in the eyes and said, Mr. President, my mission here is to bring about a balance in our trade relationship. And this afternoon, as we were going up the steps, he said, Mr. President, do you remember what I told you when I presented my letters of credentials? I mumbled, yes. She says, no, maybe you don't remember. I told you that I want to balance the trade relations. Now, when a lady is serious and looks you straight in the eyes, you better wake up. High Commissioner, your message is loud and clear. And as I said earlier, your mission has also become my mission, that we should begin to balance the trade between South Africa and Kenya, because it is embarrassingly unbalanced at the moment. It makes me uncomfortable that the trade between South Africa and Kenya is largely in South Africa's favor. We therefore need to take steps to balance it, and I'm really delighted that we are talking to a lot of Kenyan business people here, as well as South African business people. Let us take steps to create that balance, because our objective is that both countries must become winners. There mustn't only be one country that wins at the expense of the other. Kenya must win as well. We need to set ambitious targets for increasing imports from Kenya over the next few years. As South Africa, we are committed to improving the levels of intra-African investments by facilitating Kenyan investments into South Africa and by investing in Kenya's infrastructure and manufacturing capabilities. We call on Kenyan companies and business people who are here today to reach out to their South African counterparts as they search for new markets for their goods and services. And I have said that we want to see Kenyan goods in the shelves of our retail stores. We want to see Kenyan coffee, as the minister was saying, Kenyan tea, Kenyan everything that you produce. This is what we want to see. And African hands must make the goods and provide the services that Africans use. We must correct the distorted trade relationships that exist between African countries as well as the rest of the world. We can no longer simply be suppliers of raw materials to the rest of the world and become importers of consumer goods and capital goods. This has to be corrected. Our people want to see a change. As we produce the raw materials, we need to convert them into products, finished products that will be exported to other countries, so that the jobs remain here on this continent instead of creating jobs elsewhere. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area provides an opportunity for our continent to redefine its relationship with the rest of the world and meet the needs of our people for decent work and for decent standards of living. The value of African self-sufficiency was further underlined by the outbreak of COVID-19 early last year, which exposed our vulnerabilities as a continent. When supply chains were disrupted and we were left without critical goods. Left without critical supplies in those first few months, South African government worked with business and other stakeholders to repurpose and expand our industrial capacity to meet the need for medical ventilators, face masks, sanitizers, basic medicines, and later vaccines. As soon as production was up and running, South Africa was able to provide critical medical supplies also on an export basis to a number of other African countries. More than 100 million doses of vaccines have now been produced in South Africa, and there is agreement that the bulk of what is produced here will be targeted specifically for supply to the rest of the continent. Since those first steps, just 18 months ago, The market value of the COVID-related goods produced is estimated to be about $2 billion. This shows the great potential that exists for collaboration amongst all economic players in pursuit of an urgent and common goal. Trade is built on a bedrock of investment, and we must find ways of attracting more investment into our economies. Crucially, we must encourage African businesses to invest in each other's countries. The African Continental Free Trade Area should be underpinned by strong and ambitious rules of origin that require a high level of value add here on our continent. This is not about taking production away from any African country, but a focus on replacing the large import bill that Africa has with the rest of the world. We need to be proactive in developing a regional industrial vision that recognizes and builds on each country's unique capabilities. The AfCFTA is about using the combination of the continent's raw materials and industrial capacity, as well as its finance capacity, to produce quality finished goods for the local and global markets. It is about creating a market large enough to attract investors from across the world to set up their production facilities on our continent. Now, the vision of African integration is closer than it has ever been. The promise of the AfCFTA will only be truly realized through engagements like the one that we are having today. We need governments, investors, entrepreneurs, and business leaders from various African countries to come together like this, like what you've been doing all day today, to explore new partnerships and to reach agreements that drive new trade and investment. And I hope that today, as you've been meeting, you've been able to move from contact to contract, that through your contact, you've crafted a number of contracts, like we saw earlier today with our airlines. It was through a call from President Kenyatta, who called me one afternoon and said in his usual booming voice, "My brother Cyril, I want to talk to you about our airlines." And I wondered, what is it that he's wanting to talk to me about? And I said, "My brother Uhuru, what is it you want to talk about?" He says, "No, I want to talk about the tie-up between Kenya Airways and South African Airways." Now that was like a presidential vision that he was putting forward. I'm rather pleased today that we have seen the signing of this agreement, because it is the vision that has emerged from the two countries that is possibly, hopefully, and definitely going to lead to something that both our two countries will be proud about when we set up. By working together, talking together, finding ways of crafting partnerships, and by recognizing the immense potential of our two countries and of our continent, we can build a more inclusive, more resilient, and more prosperous future for all our people. With your visit to our country today, President Kenyatta, I feel much more hopeful about the future of African integration. The warmth that prevails between our two countries, the warmth that I've seen amongst our ministers, the warmth that I'm also sensing here amongst our business people, and the warmth that you and I feel when we are together, behoves well for the future of the relations between the two countries. And with that, I truly thank you for being here And I'm really delighted that this business forum seems to have yielded something much more concrete, as reported by the leaders of our business two organizations. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you for devoting time to talk about our integration. Thank you.